Hello, everyone.
Hey
How is
everyone.
everyone doing? Hi, Ellie. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing? It's been ages since we've done a stream together, I feel.
That is correct. Yeah. And it feels good. Let's see if it feels good like
In
in
an
1 hour
hour.
or so. But I think so because we have a few cool things to show. But before we do so, I would take care of a little bit of housekeeping. So let me share my screen here. And yeah, as you know, I'm always showing this page in the beginning, and I'm also gonna share the link here in the chat. So this is thanks for joining our live stream site, as you can see. And here you can find all the links to important websites like the Maxon events page, where you can find all sorts of events that we are attending or that we are hosting live. As you can see here, the Create with Maxon series for August is already on here as well. We're going to talk about architectural visualization techniques and workflows, and we're going to have exciting guests on there, Dusan Vukcevic and Jörg Vogel. Yeah, and that's going to be a fantastic month of live streams again. So also, we have a Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. And here we have all the recordings of Ask the Trainer and Create with Maxon and a few other things that are cool. So if you want to catch up, or if you came in late or so and want to watch the beginning of a show, this is the place to go. Other than that, we have University, our learning platform at Maxon. And here, I want to point out all the Getting Started series. So if you're new to Maxon or any specific Maxon software like Cinema 4D or Redshift or ZBrush or, yeah, Red Giant, everything Red Giant here, you can just get the Getting Started tutorials here and, yeah, find your way into using these cool softwares. All right, and then here we have the Maxon Ask the Trainer exclusive ware store, and let me quickly share the link for this one as well. The link actually is on this page here as well, so you could just click this link and then type in the coupon code, which is today or for this month, C4D Quick Treats. And yeah, maybe we can show that here as well. And also what I want to show is that there is a QR code that you can use to get to the page, this overview page where you can see all the links. And also, very importantly, when you scroll down, there is the Ask Your Question form. And thank you for using it so extensively. That's really fantastic. That allows us to prepare for questions and stuff. And that's really cool. We also answer questions that are here in the live chat, of course. But using that form whenever you are, let's say, on your way, on the go, on the bus station, on the train station, or wherever, you can ask your questions anyways, and we will have a look at this page and ask as many questions as possible. All right. That being said, I think we can actually jump in and start with a few cool things. So one thing that you might have noticed is that your Maxon app was asking for an update, and then you were able to download the new Cinema 4D version. Cinema 4D 2024.5 came out yesterday, along with a new Redshift version. So this is what we're going to talk about first, and then we're going to dive into questions. So shall we start with Cinema 4D stuff or with the Redshift stuff? What do you...
Yeah, I mean, it's your screen. So why don't we start with your stuff and then I can do the Redshift stuff.
All right. So there is a new behavior. Let me just type in chair here. and search for all sorts of models. I'm just gonna, just use this one here. And let's have a look at the legs here and have a look at polygon mode. And let's just select a few of these. And now let's say we want to split these off. And so before, the behavior was that all polygons were still remaining in the original geometry. But now if you do that, if you just split, you will have this part, but it's been removed from the original geometry. You can have the old behavior if you use the cogwheel here, the settings, but this is quite a useful thing to know. And then there is another thing, because this split command also has been added to C nodes, or to the nodes that you can use to create your modifiers and stuff like that. And I want to give you an example of that. So what I created here is a setup that is using any geometry, splitting it up into two parts, and I'm doing two different things with these. Let me go to the first frame. So here we go. So we have these metal parts, these golden parts, and then we have these more liquid parts. And wherever there's liquid stuff, there is no metal stuff, and the other way around. And this has been done with the split command. This setup is 100% procedural, so I could put in some other stuff, some other word like C4D. Give it a second to update. There we go. Or I can write Elly, and then you will see Elly on screen in a second. All right, so I want to show you how you can do that. If I wouldn't render, it would be much faster, but here we go. So 100% procedural, and there's a lot of power in creating procedural setups. So I want to show you how I created that. So as you can see, if I deactivate the nodes modifier and just bring in the lines here, let me also get rid of the backdrop and the dome light here. You can see that this is the geometry. So basically I'm creating a text, then I'm using a volume builder and measure to make it smoother, and a remesh to make a triangle mesh out of it. That is pretty low dense. And now I want to use this geometry to do something with it. And I'm using the nodes modifier. You can get that from the asset browser when you type in nodes modifier. There we go. And this works like any other modifier or deformer. You just make it a child of the object that you want to modify. And now let's have a look at this. So what I have here at the moment is there's a geometry input and a geometry output, and I'm doing a few things here. But actually, I want to show you something else. This is just one of the two streams that I'm going to have after using the split. So let's do this like so. Okay, let me connect the geometry with the geometry, because this way it's coming in. All right, and then what I want to do is I double click in here and I want to create a random selection. And this random selection will randomly select polygons. But right now, nothing is happening with these polygons. So let me add the split node here. Not split, split. All right, the split node, where is it? Split, here we go. And just add that here. And now you can see that we split off some of these polygons. And I have this geometry stream, right? So geometry is going in and then geometry is going out. And I also have an output for the remainder. So I can also use the exact opposite of the remainder of the selection. So I can use both and modify both, which is pretty cool. And then what I usually do here is I create a select node to just select all nodes and add them to the active selection. So I'm going to create a polygon selection. Selection string is going to be all. So now all polygons are part of the active selection. So basically what I'm doing here is not like a super complicated node setup. What I'm doing here is just creating a modeling stack and procedurally performing one modeling operation after the next, and all modeling operations that I'm using here are available as commands or tools. So they are also available outside the node context. So let me show you another thing. So we can type in subdivide and use a subdivide node to subdivide these polygons. And now the selection string is default. That means that that it's using either the current selection, or if there is no active selection, then it's using all polygons. But I defined that the active selection is going to be all polygons here in the select node. However, right now I'm going to take smooth here in the selection in the subdivide node and add a few more subdivisions. But now you can see that these are still attached, right? And I want to detach these actually by islands, but I can also do that by polygon. Another node that has been added is the disconnect node. So if I put that in here, you can see that now, let me see what is happening or what is not happening. Actually, that should preserve groups. I'm going to untick preserve groups. So now we can have each polygon as its separate thing, and this is working very well. If I want each polygon to be a separate thing. But if I want to keep the islands but just detach these points here, then there's something that I actually learned yesterday while I was talking to one of our talented developers. And that is actually that you can use the non-manifold node, or also command that also exists inside of Cinema 4D, to do exactly that. So if I put that in here, you can see, wait, is it the resolve non-manifold? No, there is a, let me just go with a manifold. Remove non-manifold, that's what it is. Okay, so here we go. And what this is doing is it's actually using or splitting up the polygons that are attached to a single point. So if you have one point and there are 3 polygons attached, to really detach these, you need the resolve non-manifold. All right. So yeah, what I can do now as well is I can input like a thicken, for example, and this way I can create something that is pretty organic. And let me just move that to the inside. Let's make this a little thicker maybe, and here in the subdivision, add a subdivision. And let's say we are happy with that. Also, let me just make this string a little shorter. So let's go with C4D for now. There we go. So we now have this, and we have this metal down here. So what we can do actually is we could say, okay, this one is the actual geometry. This one is going to be the remainder. And when I switch these, you see that it's switching between the two. So how can we make them one thing? This can be done by using the connect. So this is an important one. When you split objects off or split polygons off and you want to make them part of the same geometry again, you need to connect them back together. And we want to add an input because by default there's just one input. And now we can just put this geometry stream into the connect, and now we have both. So one thing that I would do here as well is I would add a store selection, because this will allow me to create a polygon selection. You can see that there's already this polygon selection here now. The other one I moved up to the remesh, and I can name it. Let's say, I think I already have a selection set in the material, which is soft, I think. And I'm going to select all polygons. And now, yeah, you can see that the material changed already. And yeah, this is a pretty cool thing because it's 100% procedural, as you saw. And yeah, we can do a lot of things here. So let's type in ATT. There we go. All right, so this is the split command and split node and disconnect node. And the next thing I want to show is particle related. Or do we have questions so far until here?
We have a couple of questions not related to this.
Okay, then let me finish the new stuff section before we dive into these. The next thing is I have a particle setup here. Pretty simple, just some particles with some gravity, and the initial particles are dying here, but they are reproducing themselves and creating these nice particle trails. One thing that is new now is in the reproduce, when you go down to, when you open up the properties and go down to color, there is now the option to add random color or noise color. So now you can see that there is that these are picking random colors from the gradient here. And what you can do, for example, as well, is just load another preset and let's go with full colors, and then it would be super colorful. Another thing that you can do with this is if you, for example, have like to deal with corporate colors or so, and you want to just use these, I'm going to reset this to default. You can just set these colors up. Let's say there's a blue, and then there's this red, and then there's a special yellow like this one here. So right now it's blending between these, but if you right-click the gradient and go to interpolation of all knots and set this to step, then you will have exactly these three colors and nothing else. So this is a cool trick as well. All right. In the modifiers, let me just go to my particles layout. There are also a few updates. It's small updates. That's why I'm not going into these, but yeah, definitely check them out. Everything that has a little dot on it when you have feature highlighting, new feature highlighting enabled, is worth having a look. Another thing that we've added here is that you can add, or when you cached particles using like selecting the group and then go to cache and then cache it out, it's being cached as an Alembic. And when you want to bring it back, let me see, where's my folder here? Here we go. I have this fireworks trails thing. You can now import points here as particle group. So this will add it as a cached particle group, basically. And now you can see there's stuff going on. And what is cool here is that you can, of course, remap the time. So you could go in here and do something like that. So you start faster and then slow down and then be faster again. In this case, you have to watch out a little bit because new particle generation will be stepped, but everything that is, all particles that are there are interpolating linearly, as you can see here. All right, so one thing that many people don't know, and there was a question in sent using that form as well, was about SloMos and time lapses and stuff. So let me reset this and let me show you another workflow. What if you want to create a time lapse or like a SloMo part in for your whole scene, actually? Then everything needs to be cached, of course, if you have simulations, but also if you have another object in here. Let's just create a torus and let's scale this down and go from here. Let me just go to frame 0, and I'm gonna select the torus, set a keyframe at the first frame, and just go to the other side here. Come on, let me select this and set another keyframe here. Then you can see that there is a movement. So I'm animating this thing. What if we want to create a slow-mo effect of this, like a bullet time effect of this whole thing? Then what we can do is we can right-click here and add a special track, time track. And the time track is actually a really cool thing that allows you to create these bullet time effects. Before we do that, you need to know that in here, we need to set the cache stuff to not use the animation and just go with the frame. And we set a keyframe here for 0 and one for 200. So we are animating it along with everything. So right now it should work perfectly, just in case there is a curve. No, it's linear already. Perfect. So what we can do now is we can go to the time track, and let's say we want to set another keyframe here and one here, and then we want to spread these out. Sorry, I still selected the last one, like so. And this way, we're going to get a fast movement here in the beginning, then a slow-mo here, or bullet time effect here, and fast back here. But if I play this back, this doesn't really work, because we have to assign the time track to the animation tracks of these other animations. So whenever you select something here in the timeline, you will get the track settings here. And you have the before and after behavior, but you also have a slot for a time track. And this is where you need to drag and drop this time track in. And we're going to do the same for the torus position. Here we go. Bring in the time track. And now, if we play this back, you can see that everything is slowing down in this section, and then it will speed up again here. So yeah, you can create those full scene slow motion effects if you have keyframes for the stuff, and then you need to assign the time track here. So that's a cool workflow that is not new, but I just wanted to show it because it is related to that whole thing, to that whole topic of caching and retiming. All right, let me get rid of the timeline here and show you another thing that has been added. So what I'm going to create next is a little conveyor belt animation. And what you see here is actually 0 keyframes. So what's happening here is I'm using motors and springs with the new simulation features. And this is actually what's new here, that you can use motor and spring now with everything that is in the simulation tags here. So this is cool. Let me go to this other scene here. That's the starting scene, because this one is a little bit more tricky to set up. So you could create like cars with wheels, and if you set the wheels to have a motor, then the cars will just start driving. So let's set this up here. Actually, let me get rid of these things. I think that's enough here. Yeah, this one has a collider tag on it already. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these two elements, so the actual rotating part and this axis here, to be rigid bodies. And then in the rigid body tag, I'm going to have a look at the dynamic settings. That's all good. Collision is also good. I'm going to reduce the thickness here. Mass is fine. Forces is an interesting one. So with the cylinder, I totally want to follow the rotation. So the rotation should always be the same. Otherwise, it would like just make weird stuff. Follow position can be off. And for the tube, I want to follow the position a little bit and not follow the rotation. So when I press play now, yeah, stuff is happening because I also need to set up the collision shapes. So let me go in here, collision shape, auto. I'm going to go with, yeah, auto might be okay if I bring up the geometry accuracy, and the same actually for this one. Let's see if it's still falling apart. No. So this is actually what I want as the default behavior. And what I can do now is I can add a motor, and I'm going to rotate that in like so by 90 degrees. And I'm going to place it in here in this whole hierarchy. And then this is an angular motor, and I want the tube to be in here. That's object A, and the cylinder, that's object B. So the tube, this part here, is going to be attached to the axis part, but I want to apply the motor only to object A. And now, in theory, this should rotate. What we need in this case here is a little bit more torque. I think 500 will work. And now you can see that there is this little rotation knob that is now working here. Okay, so now we have a rolling thing, which is good. And the next thing I want to add is a spring. So let me go to simulate, spring, and add a spring as well. And for the spring, this is supposed to be a linear spring. I only want to put in the cylinder here as object A and move that up a little bit, let's say by 10 centimeters, and set the rest length to 10 centimeters. And then let's set the elastic limit to something like 20. I think this one is 20 long, and this one here to 0. I think that's okay. All right, and let's see what's happening. Yeah, it's still falling down because the stiffness is not high enough. Let me go with 10 or so. And now you can see that it's, yeah, somehow working. All right, so now we have one element here. Let me double check if we can do a few more things. I'm going to deactivate the friction for this one. But now, also I'm going to go up with the friction here. But now what I can do is I can activate the cloner. And for this setup, I have to make sure that the cloner is made editable. So I'm going to click this little button here to make the cloner editable. And now these are real objects here. They are not just clones, they are real objects. And if I press play now, you can see that the box is falling onto the conveyor belt. And the conveyor belt is also reacting to the weight of that whole thing. This can be done for like car springs on the wheels and stuff. Yeah, so it's quite exciting. All right, this is everything that I wanted to show for this release. I just noticed that we're already half an hour in. That's I misassumed how long it takes to to explain all that.
That's no problem. Shall I take over and show the Redshift stuff, and then we can look at some questions? I've been answering a couple anyway. Just
absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Cool. All right, yeah. So I'm just going to show some of the new things in Redshift. There's just a couple of small things, and then there is also a new shader. So I'm gonna start with that because it's quite a fun thing to show. So I'm going to create a really simple like MoGraph setup, because it's the distance shader. And so what we can do is we can now shade and colorize objects based on the distance they are from other objects. And if that doesn't make sense, then don't worry, because I'm about to show you what it means. So again, like super simple, like let's just do this. I probably could have done this while you were talking, but hey, it just shows how quick and easy MoGraph is to use. Right. Okay, cool. So I got my little sphere set up. I'm going to create some animation. This isn't necessary. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to create animation. I'm going to leave it static first and then create the animation. And then you'll be like, wow. So let me just open up my Redshift render view and kick this off. And just for the sake of things, let's maybe have a dome light with a HDR. Okay, and turn that background off. Okay, cool. So this is what we have going on. So what we can do, let's just put these a little bit closer and then create a brand new material. So this material I'm going to throw onto my plane. So the plane is going to have my distance shader showing on it. So if we open this up, all we have to do is double click and then search distance. So this is the new distance shader. And what we can do is we can actually output the color into the base color of our standard material, and then we can define our distance near and far. And so just to kind of represent what this actually does, if I plug this in here, it kind of just looks like we're creating a shadow based off of our spheres, but really what we're doing is we're creating this shading based on how far the objects are from one another. So, and we can define the distance near and far and the samples, so how sort of accurate and clear that's all going to be. But the cool thing that we can do is we can then colorize this, and this is where it starts to become quite cool. So if we throw a ramp in here, and then let's just load like a really quick preset so I don't have to find some colors. And once that loads, it now looks something like this. So now what's happening is we're taking that output gradient, so that distance that the spheres are from my plane, we're then colorizing it with a ramp, and that's controlling the base color. So we get this really cool looking pattern. And so this pattern is dynamic. So as I move my spheres around, we get this really cool animated pattern. Where this is really fun is if we want to combine it with MoGraph. So we know if we want to throw on a random effector, let's maybe just have it go up and down on the y-axis. Set up some auto animation by using the noise shader, the noise mode. And then we can just play this through. And so hopefully this can play through the stream well. Like, I know we don't always have the best playback, but hopefully we can see that as the spheres are animating up and down, we're then able to animate that distance and that really cool looking pattern. So this is a new shader that we have in. That opens up some really cool like dynamic shading for now. At the moment, Jonas, you might have to correct me that it doesn't work with things like bump and displacement just yet, which would be a cool thing.
No.
But hopefully that is a feature to come. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. So yeah, that's the distance shader. And then another quick thing, what I might do is I might just keep this all in the same scene. And kick this off, is auto displacement. And so what I mean by that is if I grab myself a sphere, you can see our sphere in here. And if I double click, create a new material, throw this material onto my sphere. Let's just make sure we have, let's just increase our segments. And then let's come in and we're going to set up some displacement. Again, we'll just keep it nice and simple by creating a Maxon noise. Let's see how this looks. Let's maybe make it a little bit bigger and then increase the contrast. So let's put it lower. So what we can do is we can take this noise and we can use it as a displacement map, plug that in there, and then plug that into displacement. And what you'll notice is it actually works straight away. So if I just increase the scale, what we now have is we have effectively automatic displacement. So previously, the previous workflow was we had to come in, we had to right click, and we had to create like a Redshift object tag, do that, enable it, enable displacement, etc. We no longer have to do that workflow. It's automatically inbuilt for us. So a small thing, but hopefully a very useful thing.
It is very useful. Absolutely.
It is. And finally, a sort of, again, a small thing is if you are used to using the camera crane or the camera rig, you'll now see that that actually uses the Redshift camera as opposed to the standard Cinema 4D camera. So again, another just sort of nice ease of use thing for those of you that are now using Redshift.
Yeah, and that's not just for the camera crane, right? It's also for camera calibration and also for motion tracking.
Yes.
It's creating Redshift cameras.
Yes.
Once Redshift is the renderer.
Is your renderer, yeah. So luckily this is the default, but if it's not for yourselves, then yeah, make sure you have Redshift enabled, then all of these nice features will be working for you. Yeah, so one other thing I wanted to go through, which isn't a new feature from yesterday, but it is a new feature from, I believe, the April release. And it might be something that people haven't necessarily noticed. And that is the new standard volume shader. And also the fact that we now can have like additional flexibility and do programmable shading, which is something like creating displacement on a shader, on a volume, sorry. So let's just delete all of this. I'm just going to, again, do like a really quick setup because I know we haven't got loads of time. Let me just create a cube. And I'm just going to create a really simple volume. And the way that I can do that is I can take my cube and I can take the volume builder. I can drop that into my volume builder and change my volume type to fog mode. So let me just kick that off. So we're not going to see anything. And the reason for that is when we work with volumes inside of Redshift, we need to have a volume shader. So we can go to Create, Materials, and we can grab the RS volume. So what this is doing is this is actually the legacy workflow. So this is the previous volume shader. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take the new one. So if I just search volume, we now see we have standard volume, similar to the standard material. And we can reconnect that to the volume. And we can see it's a much more user-friendly. So we have our volume channels. And so in here, what we can do, so our volume channel is our VDB. So if you're working with Pyro or you're working with Imogen, Turbulence, etc., this is where you would define that. So let's just drop that on my volume builder. And I can choose volume builder. And then I might just have to refresh this. And so now we can see we're getting a fog volume. And we can control different aspects of this volume really nicely and easily with this new shader. So we can control the density, so we can have it more or less dense. We can control the scatter color, so effectively the color of our volume. We can control the transparency as well as things like emission. So we can, again, we can type in the volume builder and then we would create emission based on that. But the power behind this really comes in the flexibility that we now have. And that is that we can, you can see these are all inputs on our standard volume. So we can now actually program and play around with our different shaders. And we can add some displacement and some additional detail. So we can see here, we just have this really basic cube. So what we could do is we can take a Maxon noise and we can add some additional displacement and detail onto my fog volume. And for that, what we're going to need is another node, which is the volume scalar attribute. And for this, if we're working with programming these shaders, what we do want to do is we want to make sure that we actually don't have the volume builder or the channel enabled here. We want to have it inside of the volume scalar attribute. So we want to make sure it's in here. And then this, we will connect to our volume density. So at the moment, nothing is happening. And that's because we need to define the displacement, so the detail. And for that, what we can do is, again, we'll keep it simple. We can take a Maxon noise. And this Maxon noise, if I just, again, increase the size, just because my cube is quite big, and then just increase the contrast, we can take this noise and we can use this to control the position offset and displace the voxel grid. So what we want to do is we do need to use a vector change range to take this Maxon noise and convert it into vector data. So we take a vector change range, connect these together, and then this connects to our position offset. And so now, hopefully you can see, we're now getting some displacement in our fog volume. And then it comes down to just playing around with your different min and max ranges. So if we just do maybe like a -1 on each, we can see we're getting this really nice detail. And this is all being controlled by this setup. So we can do maybe like a cell displacement. And if I sort of like come a little bit closer, hopefully we can see it in the stream. And then again, play around with a few more of these values and add some displacement in our fog volume. So this is where the standard volume is far more powerful. So it's ease of use. If you don't want to be worried about programmable shaders, that's totally fine. Its ease of use is great. So very similar to when we updated the standard material, it's much more artist and user friendly. So we can play around with the volume, the density, scattering, which is like the light coming into the volume and creating those colors. We can even control the scatter color with a noise. So we could have different gradients through our density as well. And then if we want to take it further and actually start to adjust and play around, we can then take advantage of these new attribute nodes. And then we can create things like detailing and displacement with the noise. So that's a quick thing. So I know that came out in April, but I haven't really spent a lot of time playing around with it. So this was a nice reason for me to...
I have a question.
Yes?
Or, yeah, a question.
Yeah.
Can you, in the change range, can you type in something more extreme, like -100 and +100? Because I think then, there we go. Then it's going to be way more visible what's happening.
What you could do is you can also use a multiply. So if you want a slightly easier way of doing that, we could do a multiply in here and then multiply it by a more simpler way of maybe doing that. Is it doing that?
That's cool. Because that, what happens if you go back and to the Maxon noise and use a turbulence, for example?
Yeah.
That
Displace turbulence.
Yeah.
So let me zoom out a little bit.
Yeah, that's looking really cool.
Yeah, and so one thing as well, if you're using this workflow and you're not just doing like a simple setup like I've done, and you're using the Redshift volume importer, so if you have your own VDBs, if you don't know, if you have your own VDBs and you want to load them into Cinema 4D using Redshift, you can actually add them in here. And then what will happen sometimes is you might get clipping around the edge as if there's like an invisible bounding box. If that happens, you can just increase the volume padding. And so of course it's not going to work for me because I've not got a VDB in here. But if you are loading your own in and you're getting that issue, then inside the Redshift volume object, just increase the volume padding. Cool.
Yeah.
Shall I answer a quick question? Because it's also related to volumes. So
absolutely. Also, shout out to our audience. You're doing a great job on helping each other out. That's cool. In the chat.
It's always nice to see in
perfect.
The chat.
Yeah.
Everyone answering everyone's questions. Okay, yeah. So yeah, those are the new things. I'm sure we're going to get some questions, but one that we actually had in from the QR code was this. So is it possible to apply gradients for fading a volume shader to transparent? So I imagine sort of creating an effect where it looks like it's dissolving or sort of like appearing. Yes, absolutely. This is possible. So I just have this VDB in here, which I actually downloaded from, let me just put this over here, VFX Assets. This is a free VDB that you can download for a nice, lovely looking cloud. So yeah, just wanted to like shout that out. That's where I downloaded it from. And let's just create a volume. Not a volume. I'm not in the right thing. Here we go. Standard volume. Plug that into my volume here, and then let's have my density. That should work. Actually, ignore me. I'm not doing it this way. I'm doing it using the volume builder. So the same workflow as we just did. And put that on there, and then I can use the volume builder. Okay. Hello. Why does that not want to load in there? Let me try that again. Okay, take two. Right, and let me just do a normal volume then.
Well, maybe you can, if you set the volume builder from SDF to...
Was it not? Yeah, it's already on Fog.
To Fog, yeah?
Yeah. Am I okay? Right.
Yeah, are you okay?
I'm not okay. This is why I love doing live streams. Okay, I'm unsure why I'm not seeing this. Wait. Solar Sky. I am not sure what is going on. Fine.
The VDB is in there.
Volume builder. And
you're reading the density grid.
Let me try the Redshift volume instead.
Yeah.
Let's try that one. Okay, let me see it. Okay, I'm gonna just do it on the other scene then, because it's the same workflow. I'm unsure why it's not working. Of course, it's not working when it's live, but cool. Right, it's the same workflow though. So let me just come into here. Let's get rid of all of that, and we just want to see the volume. Okay, works fine here. Strange. Just maybe it's the VDB. Doesn't like it. Okay, yeah. So the way that we can then create this fading effect is inside the volume builder. We can take a fog multiply, and then inside of here, if we then multiply this volume by 0, effectively it disappears because we're multiplying by 0, and so there's no voxel data. And then what we can do, because we're using this fog multiply, this filter layer, we actually have access to fields. And so then if we come in and we take a linear field, what we can then do is we can use this to create that sort of disappearing or fading gradient effect. So that would work the same if the VDB was working for me. Maybe it was just me doing something wrong. But yeah, it works in the same way.
But the cool thing here is that you could even, because it's fields, you could even layer them up. For example, you could add in a random field as well, so that you get like a sort of displaced or at least broken up linear field.
Yeah.
And then you can create more natural transitions. Let's say your initial VDB is a cloud or something, then that would work and look more natural.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
All right. So let me see. There were a few questions. So one question here. Let's see.
Oh, yes, this is
okay. That was the answer to the question in the chat. So yeah, Mark was wanted to know where to find the setting for
the
global
filter
illumination with irradiance point cloud, and that is
Yes, so that there's a filter size. So inside of your GI under Irradiance Point Cloud, if that's what you're using as your secondary engine, there is a filter size in there. So I think this was this was like a error that he was getting. If not, there's also a filter size under your unified sampling. But I think it might be due to this one.
Mm-hmm. All right. Shall we move on with the next question then?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do another one?
The
one from
I don't mind if you had a C4D one.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
I have one. So yeah, let's switch to just have a little bit of a different screen here. That's my screen. So there was a question. Is there a way to bake displacement maps into the geometry created with the displacement blender, I assume in Redshift, for detailed resin 3D printing? The answer is yes. That's the good thing. It's just not through Redshift. You have to go another way. And I'm going to show this here with this very simplified version of a model. We have a torus here, as you can see. So what I would do, let's say this is the mesh density of the object that you want to print, and you want to add more detail. Actually, usually this would be a little higher than already. So let's go with these initial values. And now let's say you want to add displacement here. That means that if it's supposed to be like very highly detailed, you need that geometry information in there. And there are two ways of doing that. One I showed earlier is the Subdivide node or nodes modifier. So if you go in here and just type in Subdivide, you can use this one to subdivide this further, of course, in smooth mode. Or, of course, you can use good old subdivision surface. I'm holding down the Alt key while I have the torus selected to just make it a parent of the torus while I'm creating it. And then you can go up here, let's say to, well, let's go with 4x4 to add some more resolution. You can see that it's now a lot more dense. So I'm going to fade that out, or I'm going to deactivate the lines view. But now what you can do is actually you can go with the displacer. And I'm just assuming that you have UVs and everything set up. So I use the displacer and I put it second here, because the first thing that is going to be that is under the subdivision surface is always the one that's going to be subdivided. So if I do this, you can see that there's no subdivisions because it's trying to subdivide the displacer, and now it's subdividing the torus. So it needs to be second, or at least not first. So I hit NA to get rid of the lines. And now in the displacer, in the shading, I can add whatever texture I want. Let's just have a look here and let's search for Displace, maybe under media. And let's see if we find a good displacement map. Let's maybe go with these. Just use those here. Yeah, as you can see, there is now a lot of detail in here, especially on the inside. If the detail here is not enough, you can always go one up here. Let's go with 5 for both, like so. And yeah, as you can see, that there is a lot of detail. We can go even higher. Let's see if that's still feasible here, because we are dealing with a lot of polygons now. But yeah, you can see the detail. And then if you want to bring that to a 3D printer, what you need to do is you current state to object the whole thing. This will take a little bit at the moment. And then you can actually get rid of the subdivision, of the original subdivision surface, the generator. And now you have all the detail baked in, and you have an incredibly high detailed mesh. So in this case, if I go to points mode, you can see that we're already at 33 million polygons for this object. So this is how you would get that super high detail. You don't have to go that high with an object like this one, but there might be objects where you want to go pretty high with that. So yeah, that is the answer to this question. But let me also have a look at 2 other questions that have been asked using the form on that site that we showed earlier and that we're going to show later again. So the question was, when you render the different AOVs, what's the proper way of putting them back together in After Effects? There is no super short answer for that. But what I want to do is I want to share in the chat. Well, I want to share a live stream series that we did earlier this year that was exactly about that topic, AOVs, and how to set them up in Cinema 4D and how to use them in After Effects with Lionel Visidomini. And yeah, it's a really good series, and everything you need to know about working with AOVs is in there. So definitely check that out. I'm linking here to the first video, but in the end, there's going to be like an end card that is going to point you to the next video. All right, so that's that question. And then there was another one that was very easy to answer. I'm learning Cinema 4D, but I struggle to find a teacher who would teach me specific questions. Do you know anyone who would be willing to have a one-on-one? So when I bring up this one here again, let's go to the Maxon website. Let's go to this one. Under Learn, there is a site called Training Partners. And here you can search by region and also by type. And if you want a certified trainer, just click this filter here, and then you can see certified trainers that you can reach out to. All right. Cool. These are the questions that I wanted to answer from the form on that website. Is there another thing you wanted to show, or shall we have another look at the live questions?
I'm happy to do some live questions.
Yeah.
I think that'd be cool.
Let me see.
I've starred a couple.
Yeah. So one is here. Is there a way to import map data into Cinema 4D besides using a plugin like GeoLayers? Well, it always depends. If you can export to OBJ or FBX, you can always go with that workflow. But other than that, the files that Cinema 4D can import, well, actually, the better way is going to Edit and Preferences. And then when you go to Import Export, you can see all the files or all the file types that can be imported and exported. So definitely check that out. But for map data, I would go with OBJ, probably.
So there's one, I don't know if you saw Halal Studio asking about pouring milk on a bowl of cereal. And obviously we
this
know
one here.
Yeah, there isn't a sort of a fluid system inside of Cinema 4D. So this will come with an element of hacking. I've not actually tried to do liquids yet with particles, but I did a syrup test with cloth and a volume builder on a previous live stream, which could be a workflow.
Yeah, well, the cloth workflow worked pretty well for something that is not super fluid.
Yeah, I think that's the trouble. It's finding realistic looking pouring, and liquid is challenging.
Let me try something. Let's create a bowl. The easiest way to create a bowl is using a hemisphere. Rotate it. There we go. This is our bowl. We can even go more advanced and add a thicken generator to this. And now we have,
such a professional.
Wow. Look at this bowl.
Done.
I want to print it. I want to eat my muesli out of this. So what I would do here, actually, so is I would create some sort of rigid body simulation and then mesh that using a volume builder and a volume mesher and try that as a workflow. So yeah, what you can do actually is, yeah, let's just try that. I would go with small spheres, like small. What is a good small? Maybe 5, maybe 4, maybe even less. Let's go with this. And I would clone these and clone these into pretty small grid, like so. What was the radius again? See, that's 3. I'm getting old here. I can't even remember which numbers I was typing in. Don't laugh, Elly.
I was just thinking I couldn't get a volume builder to work, so I can't laugh.
All right, so let's go with something like that. I know it's not very, very nice, not very beautiful, but what we can try now, and actually, let me think. I think, yeah, let's make sure that this is still inside the bowl here. What we could do now is add, I would actually go with bullet dynamics for this one. So let's go with rigid body here. And
it's like Throwback Thursday. Let's use bullet dynamics.
Yeah, and a collider body. And in the collider body, let's make sure that we have set the, wait, static mesh. That will work. Okay, if I press play now, oh, that's gonna be slow. Let me go with less clones. Let me go with just 20 here. We don't need a full production scenario here. So what we see now is this sort of animation. And I personally think that this might be the closest we can get to anything fluid. But what we can try as well here is in, under collision. Let's get rid of all the friction. And here as well, so that we have nice movement.
That's pretty much exactly how I pour milk on my cereal, so I think it's bang on.
So, and next we can show you how to simulate like something to clean up the mess. But actually, what I would do with this now, actually, first you should cache this. But then what you can do is you take the cloner, you throw that into a volume builder. Voxel size can be definitely smaller than that and smaller than that. Yeah, let's go with something like this. And then let's have a look here at the settings for the cloner. Shall we use the mesh points maybe? This will make these a lot bigger, I think. Is it? Yes. Let's go with something like 5 maybe. Then smooth the whole thing out like so, and then add another dilate and erode, but in using a negative value here. And this will make this look a little more like fluids or like liquids. And then you can mesh that. And here is your mesh. So it is a workaround. It is a hack, but this is probably what could work in this scenario. So yeah, at this point in time, we don't have liquid simulation, but yeah, this can be a good way of doing that.
Yeah, it's a good hack, especially if you're looking for like not necessarily photorealism and you want a slightly more like NPR look, then this is like a great way of doing it.
Yeah. And let's just have a look if this is looking good in Redshift won't. Will Redshift work in this case now? I think I'm gonna current state to object this thing here just in case. And now let's, it used the initial state. Brilliant. Okay, then let's not do that. I just wanted to see what it looks like when it's being rendered, but yeah. This is how you could solve this. All right. Do we have another thing? Is there a place or tutorial that resume all the modifier node properties and possible nodes? So pretty much everything that you find as a command or tool in Cinema 4D is available as a node. And then you really just need to think about it as a modeling stack, like the ordering of operations that you would do to achieve a certain result. But most of the time, it's us here on live streams doing stuff with it. And this is actually the best source. So there's a search function on YouTube channels. And if you search for nodes modifier or for nodes in general, then you might be pointed to those live streams where we had nodes in there. All right. All right, we have more questions coming in. I'm having a look at the clock as well. So we actually have to finish shortly. Let me see. Maybe we can do one more question. Oliver is in here. Hey, Oliver. Great to have you here. Well, this is
through which one you can do in.
Yeah, I have to read them first.
Also, as like a reminder, in case we don't get around to people's questions, let me just throw this up again really quick. This links you to the form where you can answer, or you can ask all the questions, and then they come up on a spreadsheet for us, and then they're the ones that we sometimes start with. So if you're watching the start of this stream, you'll see we've gone through a couple already, and these are all from here. So if we don't get around to a question, here's the QR code, and then definitely send it to us, and then we'll be able to do it during another Ask the Trainer.
Yeah, I just made a screenshot of the questions that are still here. I think all questions are will take too long to reply to.
Yes, yeah, another quick thing from Hello Lovely, who has been great, by the way, in the chat, answering loads of questions. So I appreciate that a lot. I said you can also try a meshed pyro sim with reverse buoyancy and some rigid bodies for the serial. So I've tried this, a similar sort of like method back when we didn't have the new particle system. I was testing myself to make some liquids, and I tried this workflow, but I find it didn't work as well as the rigid body dynamics. You got too much sort of as it hit the floor, even with reverse buoyancy, you still kind of had that buoyancy afterwards, that secondary sort of like floating. I found it looked slightly less realistic. But again, like you said, they're all hacks for now.
Yeah, the thing is that with particles, there is no particle-particle collision. And that's what you would need so that particles keep distance from each other in a way that is very stable. You can do stuff like that with the Fog Multiplier, but it's also not the same, because they somehow need to also be, well, not really attached to each other. But I think for now the best way really is to go with like small spheres in a rigid body simulation. I think that's the closest that you would get to real.
Until there is some kind of like fluid sim, they're all just workarounds for now.
Exactly.
If anyone has one, then like share with us. I always like to see how people work around sort of things in C4D that they can't do.
Yeah. All right. So I would wrap up now, because actually we have things to jump to.
We do. We've saved the 3 that are in here though, haven't we? So we can add those.
Yes, absolutely.
To the document.
Yeah. 100%. All right. So let me jump back and do some housekeeping again. So again, what Elly just showed was the QR code to this page. And let me also share the link here in the chat for everyone. So this is the link that will bring you to this site, where you can have a look at which events are coming up that we are attending or doing by ourselves here online. The link to the free t-shirt website, I'm going to show that in a second again. The link to the Maxon training team YouTube channel. So in case you came in late, or you just want to catch up with one of the other recordings, go to the Maxon training team YouTube channel. And then, of course, there's Cineversity for everyone who is pretty new to Maxon, or just wants to learn like other new softwares that we are creating. Have a look at the Getting Started series. There's also a lot of other tutorial material on here, advanced tutorials and stuff. So Cineversity is a great place to start. Yeah, and then, as I said, this is the site for free t-shirts. So when you use that link that I now posted in the chat, or just this link here, you will get to the website, and you would have to type in the coupon code, which is C40 Quick Treats this month, and you will be allowed to order 1 t-shirt for free. And we say thank you for that to you for watching our live streams. Wow, it's getting late here. Yeah, that's basically everything we wanted to show today, and the time in the time that we have. I still feel comfortable. How do you feel, Elly? We had this question in the very beginning.
It's nice to be able to do a stream with you again. It's been a while. It's nice to show us some
absolutely.
things.
And we should do that more often.
We should. We've said it live, so that's the rule. It has to happen.
It has to happen. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for asking questions. Yeah, as you know, you can use the form to ask questions when we are not live, and we will have a look at all questions and see. Yeah, we try to answer as many as possible. All right, cool. I hope you had a great time, everyone, and you too, Elly.
And you too. I did. Thanks.
I did as well.
Always have a great time.
Perfect. All right. In that case, see you next time, everyone. Also, quick reminder, on Monday, there's going to be another Create with Maxon live stream with Elly and Dustin Valkema.
Yes.
About product visualization from brief to render. So this is a really cool series. We are 3 episodes in already. So definitely check out the first 3 and watch the 4th.
Yes. Live. Very AOV related. So if you're into that, you'll love it.
Perfect. All right. Cool, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.